Now let's talk about the agent of the disease. So an agent is what is causing that disease. Something like a bacteria or a fungus or a pathogen or a virus, those types of things are agents of different diseases. Though the specific causes of suicide are unknown, things like those bacteria, viruses, pathogens, etc., have not been noted as causative agents. There are some possible contributors, though, that have been researched. So, for example, a genetic link to suicide. Individuals who have committed suicide or individuals who have experienced suicidal thoughts are much more likely to have a family history of suicide. In addition to genetics, there is the use of antidepressants. Antidepressants may put an individual at an increased risk for suicidal thoughts and an increased risk for depression levels to be much higher. As a result of this, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration requires that warning labels be put on all antidepressant medications. There are also many environmental characteristics that contribute to suicidal risk, but those will be further discussed later on in this presentation. Now let's move on to the description of the condition. So suicide can be broken up into 3 different clinical terms. This includes suicidal ideation, suicide attempt, and then suicide. To describe the condition of suicide, it is very important to emphasize each of these terms. So let's first start with suicidal ideation. This is also known as just suicidal thoughts. So this is thoughts a person has when contemplating suicide. So that can be, how to commit suicide, what life would be like if they committed suicide for other people, what they would miss out on, things like that. Second is a suicide attempt. This refers to a self-inflicted violent behavior that is committed by a person in an attempt to take their own life, but they only end up sustaining injury. So obviously, their suicidal attempt did not work, and that is why it is called an attempt. Lastly, suicide is clinically defined as a fatality that is the result of self-inflicted violent behavior committed by a person who wanted to end their own life. So it's not an accident. Suicide is a thing. There is a reason for it. Somebody didn't get into a car accident and that's suicide unless they purposefully drove into a wall with the hopes of ending their own life. So this is a graphic showing the suicidal thoughts and behaviors among U.S. adults in 2016. As you can see, 9.8 million adults had serious thoughts of committing suicide, so that's the suicide ideation. And then 2.8 million adults made suicidal plans, so it's about half, or a little less than half of those people. And then a little less than half of those people, 1.3 million adults, actually attempted suicide. Let's break that down a little bit further, and you can see that 1 million adults make plans and then attempted suicide, and only 0.3 million adults made no plans and attempted suicide. So it's not very typical that people will have serious thoughts of committing suicide and then actually attempt it. Typically, they are making plans in between there, but it is possible. So while this is not a large portion of the population as a whole, you can see that it is a serious problem that we do have in the country, because obviously this is still a large number and it is something that we should take very seriously.